This is Adam Bernstein, COMM 601G with the Week 3 video blog, literature review for the downloaded peer review paper, Managing Brand Presence Through Social Media, the Case of UK Football Clubs. The paper was published in 2014, and as you can see from this panel, all four authors were working in the United Kingdom, where soccer is extremely popular and also a very animated and aggressive business sector. Generally, the authors were exploring the possibilities for social media in helping these professional football clubs build brand equity with their fan bases. Their findings pointed to the conclusion that social media strategies had potential to help these clubs achieve their business objectives in terms of interaction and engagement, and ultimately driving new traffic of their fans to official team websites that would help generate commercial gain. Among the key concerns they had in terms of the clubs was controlling brand presence on social media, as well as driving short-term revenue and as opposed to longer-term brand equity. The literature review itself was broken into three sections: social media, the effect of social media on brands, and managing relationships and communities in football. The first section on social media, the authors recognized a growing academic interest in social media and its effectiveness. Some early research showed the potential for commercial organizations and businesses, but they also demonstrated some problems where traditional marketing approaches were deployed on social media, and that ended up backfiring on the organizations. There was a recognition of empowering customers becoming crucial to building online relationships. In the second section, the effect of social media on brands, there were papers that the authors cited where virtual experiences were noted as being significant in terms of part of the consumer brand awareness. Social media was categorized with other forms of virtual media that were electronic word of mouth. That was an area that wasn't really being addressed from an academic study standpoint from the management's perspective. Virtual communities were starting to become viewed as a threat to organizations because the companies couldn't control the negative messages as well on social media. Several papers that the authors looked at were exploring the idea of this shift of balance of power between organizations to the consumer over the brand equity. And finally, there's research that the authors considered that looked at the different effects of traditional and social media on brand equity. The last section, Managing Relationships and Communities, really looked at fan behavior and how the fans connected directly to their clubs. There were papers that were recognizing and looking at the idea of this shared sense of emotional attachment that the fans have with their teams, how that manifested itself during the games themselves, where fans were using flags and banners and songs. The authors looked at how these clubs were born historically and the tension that was starting to be created between these communities that were supporting the clubs and the business entities that were growing, that were the clubs, and their profit motive. There were papers that the authors looked at that showed that academic research is getting more and more critical of sports marketing techniques, especially trends where the commercialization of the sport is starting to undermine the relationship and the links that the clubs have with their fan bases. So in summary, the authors of the paper recognized that despite social media's branding potential, there little was known about the issues and the impact that the channels had in the football industry, which was served as justification for the paper being written. There was an acknowledgement that the openness that was inherent in social media was a strategic dilemma for brand managers in terms of the possibility of them losing fans to unofficial sites in contrast with the team sites, where the team has little control over brand conversations. And finally, this idea that the literature review identified several overlapping core themes in relation to issues of control, fan engagement, and commercialization. Finally, a note about the citation style in the paper. In the first line, you see an example of the reference type that the authors used in the paper itself, and the second section is the actual reference listing that the first line refers to. This did not appear to me to be exactly APA format. There were at least one or two examples of things in this reference itself that were not consistent. First of all, this bracketed number at the beginning that referred back to the reference listing, I had not seen that in previous examples. The authors did use et al. At length in many of their references, and that, according to APA style, is appropriate. But they only used the last names of the authors instead of their last names plus the initial of their first names, which was not consistent with APA style.